I graduated from the University of Central Florida, and the Florida Department of Transportation was doing interviews one day, and I thought that would be a good company to do a practice interview with. So I went there really very kind of casual, but it turned out that I really hit it off with the guy there and ended up walking out with a job offer and thrilled to hear that I can use other people's money to go buy real estate.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Journey to Multifamily Millions. I'm your host, founder, and CEO of Zana Investments, Tim Little. And on today's show, we have with us Ginny Bolling. Ginny has been in real estate over 35 years, doing everything from governmental real estate acquisitions to her current multifamily investing. Ginny, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it is great to have you here. We go way back from the mentorship program that we're both in. But I want to get into your background because it seems like you have a wealth of experience in different aspects of real estate. So I think that's really interesting and I'm eager to dive into it. So please tell us how you got started in real estate and how you got to where you are today.
Well, I graduated from the University of Central Florida, and the Florida Department of Transportation was doing interviews one day, and I thought that would be a good company to do a practice interview with. So I went there really very kind of casual, but it turned out that I really hit it off with the guy there and ended up walking out with a job offer and thrilled to hear that I can use other people's money to go buy real estate. Speaking of casual, excuse my casualness. My tennis match ran late today, so I don't usually look like this, but so be it. It's Saturday.
Okay, that's how you got started. So we'll definitely need to go on from there. But one, a UCF grad, that's awesome. I have some friends that went to UCF. I went to Florida State myself, representing Florida right there. But after that, tell me what kind of things you did in that job and what it really taught you.
Okay. Yeah. And what you'll hear is as I go through that and a couple steps after to help tie it together, I've pivoted all my life into a little different role. So that's why my company is called Pivotal Real Estate Investments. This final
Mm,
pivot was huge, but we'll get back to that. Working for the Department of Transportation, they put us through really like another whole year of college, almost specialized to land acquisition in government environments, because especially in Florida, the government pays for property owners to hire all the experts, attorneys, appraisers, land planners. So what ends up happening is we as negotiators deal primarily with attorneys and all the experts. So you learn quite a bit. And so what ends up happening, especially if you're widening a road that's in a congested area, and we were in Fort Lauderdale doing this work, we were hitting buildings, maybe clipping them and having to cut and reface or demolish them, and sometimes the owner didn't want you doing that. It was very contentious. A lot of times they didn't want you doing that, right? But you had to get the road work done, and you learned to deal not only with highest and best use and valuation and how to negotiate for compromise, but also with me managing teams where we hit a lot of buildings. We sometimes, if they were really going to fight about it, even if there wouldn't be much building left, we might have to cut and reface it. So we had to work real close with permitting and building departments and all kinds of people and write a contract saying every exact thing we're going to do and how much room we needed to do it. We had to identify all of that and stay within our bounds to actually do the cut and reface this. The county wouldn't let us leave an open wall like the DOT used to. So we'd have to close it off again. So a lot of very detailed work, shall we say.
yeah, and I think a lot of people underestimate how much work goes into dealing with things like permitting when you're talking to the city and the county. Because I've had to do that, some of that myself on some of my properties. One of my first multifamily deals as a syndicator was a portfolio deal. And we had lots that we wanted to combine really just to make the sale easier in the future because it was it was a bunch of properties and some were right next to each other. So there was the opportunity to combine those lots and just dealing with the city and the county and the administrivia and the bureaucracy. Never underestimate how long
Yeah.
anything will take to get done with that. But you're certainly at an advantage if you understand how some of those processes work and the timelines associated with them. And then if you know the people involved, then that's even better because
Yeah.
that probably really helps you get stuff done. But have you had to deal with any of that since transitioning to the commercial multifamily side? And maybe you could talk about how that transition happened for you.
Okay, so I not only worked for the Department of Transportation, but I've worked with cities and counties. I was an appraiser in the 1980s. I was also appraising something from the blueprints. So again, I needed to understand construction pretty well and whatnot. But what I have dealt with thus far, as far as what I've acquired, I haven't had to use permitting. But as we look at hundreds of deals before we can find the right ones to invest in. So many of the ones I've looked at, some have been ground up, some have been where you have to do enough changes that require permits. You need to figure out just how long it's going to take for that area, for that particular governing authority, and talk to some people that have been dealing with them. Some of them are out of state, some are areas where you need to take the time and read their process so that you really know. But one of the saving graces for me is when I get talking with them, I can usually put them a little at ease by telling them I've worked for government, for the Department of Transportation. I understand the lingo. And then they'll start talking much faster and it's much, they're more at ease and I'm getting more done faster.
Yeah, and a lot of things tend to go in phases, right? If you have a property where you're doing a heavy value add, or like an example of mine, we had a burnt building on this acquisition,
Yeah.
and we had to tear it down to the studs before rebuilding it. And I just didn't realize that there were so many phases to that. I was just like, oh, we'll just get the work done. And it's no, you need to get an inspection before the work started, once you're down to the studs, then once the electrical's in, then drywall. And I just didn't realize that there was so much government inspection throughout that construction process. And if anything goes sideways, it can really delay the amount of time and throw off your whole business plan in terms of what you're doing. So you really need to dig into that beforehand and really understand that time and the process so you can do better underwriting, right? To know how long it will realistically take you to get some of that stuff done.
Here's a little golden nugget for you too. Because of my flipping background, I learned something the hard way. And that was my partner and I thought since we owned the property, we could certainly work on it. We could swing a hammer, right? Without
Sure.
having workers' compensation, either insurance or the exemption status filed, just like all the workers are supposed to have. And I was really good about making sure they had insurance in place and either workers' comp insurance or the proper exemption. This one day we were renovating a property that had been abandoned 20 years. We had 11 different permits we had to do for this thing. And when one of my contractors for the drywall arrived, he gave me his insurance, proof of insurance, but it didn't show anything in that little box for workers' comp. I said, "You can unload, but you can't start work." This is in Orlando, so Florida, I'm talking about. And it was shortly after one of our hurricanes, and they were doing a sting operation because the Department of Financial Services is now enforcing this part of the construction industry, and they came by and they saw the trucks in the yard, and they were training some new staff, came in and said, "Let's see all your insurance," or it was workers' comp really that they were looking for, and I had left the site, and this guy didn't have it. So they shut us down. Everybody had to leave the site. $1,000 fine on him. And then when they found out I didn't have a declared status and I'm a flipper, so I'm considered in the construction trade, I got and my partner got $1,000. And worse yet, they audit 2 years of records. Thank goodness this was only our second flip. They fined us $47,000. Now we
Oh,
argued it, and I was able to get it down to 7, and it was so faulty the way they were calculating it, but they get away with it all the time, and we were advised by some people that had also gone through it, "Just pay it and move on." But we were shut down for a few days. We could have been shut down for weeks. Yeah, you do wanna make sure you're using workers that have, at least in Florida, that have all the right credentials.
yeah. So that just goes to the requirements piece and understanding what is required to get that work done. And I think a lot of time as operators, we depend on the property manager or construction manager, whoever's overseeing that stuff. But ultimately, it comes down to us to manage the managers, right? So that's some good insight into stuff that we should and could be looking for on these projects that we have and work's getting done. Because ultimately, if those fines come down and they get levied, that's going against all of us who are invested in these projects. So that's good insight right there. Talk to me about your, again, how you, so you've done some flipping.
Mhm.
How did you transition into the commercial multifamily space? And did you start off as a passive investor or did you go straight to the general partner side of things?
So, joined the local real estate investors association here in Central Florida and started going to different meetings. And I never really was crazy about doing the flipping because I have a hard time picking paint colors and things, but my partner was good at it. I was doing the contractual part. And then the more I realized there's a commercial group. And I knew from when I was an appraiser, I liked commercial way better than residential. So I started looking into it and they were saying, it's just more zeros. You put so much work in anyway, analyzing. And that's so true. So I was learning about it, and then I found out what syndications were, and that was pivotal because it's so much easier than you would ever think to be a part owner in some big commercial properties. So once I learned that, I was set. I started learning all about syndications and different ways to do things, and so that's exactly what I did. But I and my first investment was as a limited partner into a, Texas investment with a general partnership team that I I'm still in it, a lot of faith and confidence in because I wanted to see what it was like to be the type of people I'm looking for.
And that's something that I try to communicate to so many folks who are coming up. There's one, slow down. This business isn't going anywhere. You don't have to rush into being a general partner on a deal. And two, I just think there's a lot of value in doing what I call earn while you learn, right? So there's different ways you can go about it. You can start off with a mentorship program and plunk 20, $30,000 into that. Or you could take that money and you could put it into a deal, an LP, limited partner, passively investing. And then I think you really get to learn the nuance from the investor perspective, right? You learn what questions you should be asking as a passive investor. And those are the questions you can expect once you're more on the active side. And I think you really appreciate more the awesome responsibility of working with other people's money because how much trust you felt in putting that with someone else when you were that passive investor.
Right, absolutely.
Yep. Okay. So you did that deal as the passive investor. Where did you go after that?
So, kept analyzing deals and working with people locally as well as nationally and attending a lot of conferences and networking. And I had an opportunity, it was close towards the end of an actual raise on an apartment project, a value add project in Jacksonville. And so I was able to get in on that one, and I'm thrilled to be in Jacksonville. I have a son in Jacksonville, and like I try to tell my investors, it's really nice if you invest places you like to go, as long as it meets the
Hmm.
metrics, it's growing and has all the right metrics, then shoot, it's great to be able to have a reason to go there.
Yeah. And so that deal in Jacksonville, was that something that you raised money on?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And I think a lot of people don't really know what that's like the first time, right? I don't know. Some people maybe they think they can go out the gate and they're like, "Yeah, my first deal, I'll raise $1 million." And some people do, but I don't think that's the reality for most of us who are doing it for the first time. And so I'm always interested to hear people's experiences the first time because I definitely didn't come crashing through the gate on my first raise. So I'm curious to hear what your experience was like.
Since I was coming in towards the end, they were almost to their finish line anyway, but it was surprising for me too because my peers are government workers that work with appraisals all the time. They understand value. I would think they'd be very comfortable with going through the motions of saying, "Oh, does that look good?" Or but actually it was so new to them that they often most of them were saying, "I'd like to wait and see, I'll watch," okay? And actually, there was more optimism and participation from the local RIA, the real estate investors that are local, and so now I'm known for also doing presentations at the RIA for saying why everyone should invest in syndications, because while they're busy flipping, they should have the money that they're not using working for them. Anyway, I did not get to spend a lot of time trying to raise those, so I have been looking actually since, and as prices got way over what I felt anyway they should be, I put some offers out, but I haven't won anything in the last year, so I'm really thinking this next 2 years is going to be especially good, especially with all the information we're seeing and getting on the economy and whatnot. So I'm pretty excited at what I'm seeing cross my desk now.
Yeah, we're in the same place. It's been more of a consolidation phase the last year, focusing on the properties we already have and making sure with loans coming due and stuff like that that we're still in a safe place. And it's we've continued to underwrite deals, but again, for a long time recently, it's just been hard to make anything pencil with what sellers want want.
Well, that
We've been off by a good like 20% on a lot of these deals.
well, and in Florida, our insurance rates are still out of this world and interest
Yeah.
rates are still high. So those are
Yep.
2 big killers for Florida deals right now, I think. And so I'm looking more places than I was before.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that I would love to invest in my backyard every time, but my backyard got pretty expensive and it got hard to make deals pencil out, whether it was right here in Tampa or Orlando or even Florida writ large, really. And so we've also broadened our view on things. I think we still like the Sun Belt in general, those areas. But then we did a deal in South Dakota, which is not a place I would have expected to invest in, but we met up with a partner who had boots on ground, and the demand is really high out there because they're not building as much. So you just have to look at all these other factors that may be completely different from the areas where you're used to investing. And that's what I've seen. So I wanted to get into some of the things you talked about because, again, you have such a broad array of experience within real estate. You talked about being a real estate broker, a flipper, passive investor, and now syndicator. And I don't really think there's any right answer to this question, but which of those things has been the best fit for you? Where have you felt the most comfortable?
I am very comfortable doing the eminent domain thing just because I've done it so long and I like a challenge. And
Hmm.
usually the attorneys for the owners are challenging. But the and writing contracts can be challenging in a contentious environment, and that's one of my specialties, but I like syndication a lot too. I think that this is my final place, really. I will do some general partnership bouts, and I expect to be getting into the fund of funds, and I'm doing the general partnership thing in some respects because I like to know things inside out and upside down so much. So I want to be sure I get to see the intricacies of several different deals in several different areas that I like. before I become strictly a fund manager or something like that. But I'll tell you, when I get older and older, I'll still just be a limited partner because that's the way to make your I feel the best way to make your money grow.
Yeah, and I 100% agree. And think that so many people want to become general partners, and that's great. But honestly, my overall goal is to become a permanent limited partner one day, right? You make enough capital that you could just deploy it into these investments and sit back,
Yeah.
right? After having done your own due diligence of the deal, of the operator, etc., be able to diversify into different types of assets as a limited partner and still get those returns that are just really hard to find anywhere else. And if I could live off that, then that's the ideal for for me.
Yeah, me too, especially if you've got an apartment project or industrial or whatever assets that you can just keep forever, and there are general partners out there that wanna do that, so you don't always have to be flipping. I think we'll see, since syndications are still growing and in a growth curve and learning curve, I think that there may be more and more versions of that where there's options or opportunities for people to get their money out and go on, move on if they want, but I bet you more and more of us, at least baby boomers, are going to wanna just stay in a good deal, just stay.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of these deals, I think, have even lengthened their timeline, partly out of necessity, given the markets. During COVID, I had a deal go full cycle in under 2 years, which is just ridiculous. Investors want their money back sooner rather than later if they can get the returns they were looking for. Nowadays, I think more realistic is that 5 to 7 year horizon. And that works for some people, may not work for others, and that's okay. But then I have other deals that are joint ventures where everybody's an owner in it. And that's an even longer time frame where there we're talking about 10 years. So you really better be sure that you like these partners because most marriages don't even last that long. That's a really important aspect of it. The longer you're going to be in some of these deals, the more comfortable I think you need to be upfront.
Right, for sure.
All right. This has been good, but we do need to go into the turbo round. So I am going to ask you 3 questions that I ask every guest that's on the show. And I just ask you for a quick, honest answer. Are you ready, Jenny?
Yes.
All right, let's do it. First question. What is the one red flag every investor should look out for?
Experience. You want the general partnership team to have experience and willingness to flex as times change. They really need to have the experience to know you don't stick to a plan if things change all around you. You have to leave yourself a little margin for adjusting.
Yep, absolutely. And that's the experience, not maybe only of that individual, but the entire team, right? Because as long as they can call on those experts and those experts are involved, maybe that's enough to get them through some tough times too. All right. What is a myth about this business that you would like to set straight?
You don't have to be rich. You have to be either
It's true.
accredited or sophisticated, but you do not have to be rich to own commercial real estate.
Right. And I think that's a common misconception just because people can't imagine how they could be a part owner in an apartment building, right? They think that's only for the Grant Cardones of the world and stuff like that. But it's no secret, Grant Cardone takes money from a lot of people in order to take these deals down. And so sometimes you need some capital up front. You might not be that diversified anyway, so it's really good to get into something that's a hard asset that you can see. All right, final question. Ginny, what does success look like to you?
So I had to look into why do I want to make really good money? I'm an empty nester, single person, but I really would like to make a difference in the world. I don't have to have any big name or anything like that, but I would like to have a good influence and help people that are less fortunate. And when I really thought about it, my people of choice are kids. So many adolescents today are depressed, frustrated, pessimistic. So I am embarking on different ways to try to help uplift adolescents and show them that there's reason to be optimistic and things they can do. And success for me is to be successful at doing that and being a philanthropist in many different causes. I need, Catherine Bell says, right? Oxygen is like money. The more you have, the more you can do. And the more you can do, the bigger difference you can make. And that's so true when you think about it. I am looking at building a philanthropic organization to help kids.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you're exactly right. It's really hard to think about giving to others when you're struggling or even concerned about, will I be okay in retirement, and do I have enough to pay the bills? But once you get to that place where you do have a little extra, that's where you feel mentally like you can start to help others. And the more you have, the more you can help, like you said. Ginny, this has been awesome. I really appreciate having you on. Please tell the listeners how they can get a hold of you and if there's anything else that you'd like to share with them.
Okay, I'll send you a link to an article I wrote about why multifamily is a good investment. And I can be found on LinkedIn real easy under my spelling GINNYBOLLING. And then my company is Pivotal Real Estate Investments. And if that's just spelled out and add a .com, that's an easy way to reach me as well. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. We will definitely have all that information in the show notes. Ginny, again, thanks for coming on, and I look forward to seeing you do big things on your journey to multifamily millions.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Thank you.